friends, Kim from Stamping Imperfection. Thank you for joining me. I'm here with a video for Maker Forte, and I'm using this fabulous BeYOUtiful stamp set. And it is one of those with a nice big floral and then this huge sentiment. So I'm actually going to create the floral and then layer the sentiment over it and heat emboss the sentiment over it. Now I've made 3 different versions of this card, and 2 of them I'm going to show you here. I watercolored 2 different versions of the card, and then I did one with some alcohol markers. So I'm using this Sakura Koi watercolor set. It's got 24 different watercolors, and you can see that I swatched those colors. This is a really nice travel set because it's got sponges in there that you can use to clean off your brush, and it comes with a water brush, and you can see the variety of colors that you get there. It's really nice. And I laminated my swatch sheet once it was dry so that when I do take it with me, I can actually pull that out and use that as a palette along with the pieces inside the kit. So I am using watercolor paper here. This is a piece of Strathmore watercolor paper, and I believe it fits perfectly in that MISTI. I don't think I had to cut it down. Ordinarily I would pull out my Remarkable ink pad, in Eclipse Black from Hive from Maker Forte, but I can't use this to watercolor because this is a water reactive ink pad, which means that if I stamp something with it and then use watercolors, I'm going to smear the ink because it's going to react with water. That's one of the beautiful things about dye-based ink, and it says water reactive pad. This pad works perfectly for coloring with alcohol markers. You can stamp it and color right away. It does not smear at all. It's amazing. I really like it for using my alcohol markers, no matter what alcohol markers I'm using. So I'm going to start out, since this is watercolor paper, I'm going to have to stamp this a couple of times. And generally I'll do it 2 or 3 times. Sometimes I need to do it 4 times. I am using the smoother side of this paper today because I didn't want to have to stamp it too many times. So I did also pull out, by the way, my Color Hive Acid Wash blue ink, because this is a dye-based ink. It is water reactive just like that black, and I wanted to watercolor with it to see how these watercolored, and I'm going to use that as a wash around my florals. Whenever I do florals, I always like to do a watercolor wash around them. I don't know why I got in that habit, but it's a habit I really like. And I always like having a little wash around the flowers. It's so easy to do, and it just adds so much. Usually I put splatter on my cards. I didn't put splatter on these yet. Maybe I will at some point, but I didn't do that yet. So I pulled out my Altenew Obsidian permanent ink, and this ink works really well for me for watercoloring without using a lot of I don't know what my husband is doing upstairs, but it sounds like he's like rearranging the furniture in the living room, so I apologize for that. And I like this ink a lot for watercoloring. I also use it for alcohol markers. So this ink serves me well also. So it's a nice ink pad. It is a felt pad. I love the foam pads that the Color Hive uses. Like, I really prefer them. And I think because I got used to them when I was with Stampin' Up, because that's what Stampin' Up has. And then Catherine Pooler has them, so I have her inks. And now Color Hive has the foam ink. I really like the foam ink pad. So I am using my Smoosher tool there to help, get that inked up. And I only had to to ink it twice. So I pulled out a few of the colors. You know, I just added some water to a few of the colors. I picked like an orange red that I liked, and then I picked a couple of yellows that are on the orange side. And basically, I am not being careful at all watercoloring this. The first time I tried watercoloring it, which was last night, I actually had trouble telling where the petals were, where the leaves were. Like, I struggled with that a little bit. Probably should have put my reading glasses on, but I decided I'm not going to be too fussy about it because I know I just want to get some color in there. My sentiment's going right on top of this. So, you know, just having the color in the background is the point. So I started out by putting the red sort of around the center and down the sides of some of the petals in each flower. And then I pulled out like this orangey yellow color, which I quite liked. And I think it's a very pretty color on the palette. And probably my brush had a little bit of red in it still. So once I got that orangey color down, I went to a more yellow and filled in the rest of it with this yellow, which actually looks a lot more yellow in person than it looks like on the camera here. So I really like, if I'm doing a quick watercoloring, I really like having several colors in one flower because they kind of blend in interesting ways. And even though I'm coloring them all the same way, like red in the center, then I did the orangey yellow, and then I did the yellow on the outside edges and really filled in all the leftover spaces on the flowers, like they all look a little bit different, which is amazing to me. So I also picked out a couple of greens. I have a bluish green that I really like. I think this is a really pretty color. And I just dabbed that at the tip of each of the leaves. And then I took that yellowy green and filled in the rest of the leaves. And I did the little, they look like little blooms or something. And I also did the centers of the flowers. And a couple of the floral images are like flowers that look like they're just opening up. So on the bottom part of those, which would be like at the base of all the petals, I actually did that green as well because that would be green. And I did the centers in green, but I will go back and add some brown because there is a nice brown in this set. And I just want to get a little bit of contrast. And I'm really, really being quick about this. So I'm not being fussy at all. I'm trying not to go outside the lines. If I do, I'll just clean off my brush, wet it, and remove anything that goes outside the line with my brush. And if I don't get it off perfectly, that's fine because I'm going to put a blue watercolor wash around the edge of it after it dries. So like literally I'm really doing this really fast. Not as fast as it looks because I have speeded it up a little because it would be super boring to watch otherwise. So now I'm just dropping some brown in and then I'm going to put this aside and let it dry. And I'll go on and do the marker one. So one of the things like I had to learn as I've become more of a mixed media person, I had to learn to be patient and let stuff dry. And watercolor is one of those things that you really should let dry before you move on to the next step. So I'm just cleaning up my space here. Wishing I had a sink in the basement. One of these days I will have a sink in the basement. When you know, people stop renovating their houses, I can maybe get a plumber who will show up just to put a sink in. So they're all doing all the big jobs right now, and one little utility sink in a basement, not so big. So I'm using the color Hive ink this time because I'm going to use my alcohol markers. I love this smoosh tool. I know I said this before, but I really like it. I think I have to, you know, do less stamping tries with that smoosher because now I'm getting the whole thing. It allows me to get the center of the image a lot better. So I'm pulling out some new colors of alcohol markers that I just got, and I'm super excited about these because I did not know they came out. Actually, I didn't know Altenew came out with 2 more sets. This is an especially pretty set. If you only buy one, buy this one. This is the Sunshine Valley Garden set, and I don't know whether this is set F or G or what. It doesn't say on the outside of the package anywhere that I can see. But what I liked about this is it's got the yellows, which I'm using right now, and it's got a set of greens, and then it's got a set of pinks with the darkest one having a hint of purple. And I'm going to just use the yellows because I really like yellow flowers, and I'm in the mood for yellow flowers. I don't know why, but you can see this set of markers, and these are refillable, has 4 yellows, 4 pinks, 4 greens, all designed to layer together. So it's really nice, and they are refillable. You can get replacement nibs. So I always start out with the darkest, and then I just work my way to the lightest and fill in a little more of the petal with each marker that comes through. So then I go to the next lightest color, or the second darkest color, however you want to look at that. And I go around what I've already done and fill in a little bit more of each petal. And I'll do that for all of them. And I know that, again, I'm doing this very fast. I'm not being super fussy about, how much of the colors I put in, exactly where they go. Like I tried to keep the darkest one around the center and the edges of petals, and anywhere I thought there might be a shadow. But again, I'm going to put my sentiment over this, so most of it's going to be covered up. I'm going to not fuss with it too much. I just want to get color down, and there's no point in coloring it twice, going darkest to lightest and lightest to darkest, or whatever direction you like to go, because that is definitely a personal thing. But I'm going to get all 4 of those colors in there, so I'll use the lightest one to finish off and fill in any spaces I've missed, and kind of go over each of the petals to blend all those colors together. These really do blend beautifully. These are really reasonably priced markers, and I love this particular set because this is a perfect flower set. And you don't have to use all 4 colors. You can use 2 of the colors or 3 of the colors. I endeavor to use all 4 of the colors, even on those little tiny leaves. So now I'm pulling out the greens, and I'm starting with the darkest green. And they have the order of the colors on the back of the thing, which is why I keep picking it up. Because sometimes the caps, the higher the number, you'd think the darker the color. And that's mostly true, but sometimes the caps look lighter than the marker actually is, or darker than the marker actually is. So I kind of go along with the color order listed on the back. And I just fill it all in with the lightest color. So, I'm getting some color down there, and the colors make me happy. So, again, I did the middle, I did all the little buds, or whatever those things sticking up are. And then I pulled out, this is from a different set. This is like an orangey brown. I wanted a little bit more contrast, so I kind of did around the center and, on the edges of some of the petals. I didn't do everything. I just wanted to add a little bit of contrast, almost like a drop shadow effect, but I wanted to, just make it pop a little bit more. And I actually like the way that looks with that in there. And I'll add a little bit of that browner color to the centers of the flowers as well. And that'll be that. That's my coloring. So I did pull out the yellow, lightest yellow, to blend that last color I just added, so just to get it to blend a little bit. And remember, these take time to dry, and they blend together as they dry, so this will look different in a half an hour. So I actually put these both aside and let them dry. I went and had dinner, watched a TV show with my husband, and then I decided it's time to do the sentiment. And I'm going to heat emboss the sentiment. Now, the one I did earlier or last night, I watercolored with bright pinks and reds. Then I heat embossed the sentiment in gold, and it was very hard to see. My daughter thought it was too hard to read the words, and my husband loved the color of the flowers better than the ones that I've done here. This one I did in a copper blush, and I actually heat set that twice. So I stamped it with my Color Hive clear ink, put the embossing powder on, heat set it, and then I re-stamped it with my Color Hive ink, put the embossing powder on, and heat set it a second time. So it came out much bolder. I feel like you can see this, especially up close. Not so much on the camera, but it's very pretty. That copper blush, that's from Nuvo, that embossing powder. So here you can see I smooshed that acid wash blue onto the mat. It's very light. Like, you think when you stamp it, you get a pretty bold color, but when you add just a few squirts of water, it's quite a nice light ink. I don't know how well that will photograph, but in person, it's perfect for a background. Like, if you want to do a sky, this will make a beautiful sky. And I'm going to use that same technique for the watercolored card. And this time I decided I would use white embossing powder. Since this one is a little bit darker, I thought maybe the white will show up better. And I'm actually doing the sentiment first again, and then I will actually do the watercolor over it because the embossing will resist the watercolor. And I try to get all the nooks and crannies, and you can see the white popping a little bit more once I start putting that blue on. It's just a fun touch. I do not try to make the edges of it even. In fact, I try to make it as messy. I don't try, but I don't try to make it neat. So I kind of like the really uneven edges all around it. It feels more watercolored that way, which I think is one of the fun things about watercolor. Like, messy is good. Like, you don't want to blend all the colors. You want to see some lines and contrast, and I actually really like the way that looks. And this is the one I did last night with the gold embossing powder. So the top one is the alcohol markers with not Copics, the alcohol markers with the copper, and then the white with the watercoloring in the light color, and then the gold with the pinks, and that's it. I would love it if you'd give this video a thumbs up and share with your friends, and also subscribe to my channel. I'll put all the links to everything here below. Thank you so much, friend.